IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Access over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand for a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your account. Visit itpro.tv/startup security and use the code SS30. Welcome back, everyone, to Startup Security Weekly. Got a few more announcements to make. If you would like to give a presentation at the SANS Pentest Hackfest Summit, their CFP is open. It's being hosted by renowned hacker and SANS instructor Ed Scotus. They're looking for presentations on new attack techniques, remediation, challenges to existing security methodologies, and improving the business value of penetration testing. Send your submission to pentestcfp@sans.org by 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday, May 26th, with the subject line SANS Pentest Hackfest Summit CFP 2017. Make sure you read the website for all of the in-depth requirements. The event will take place on November 13th and 14th of this year at the Hyatt Regency in Bethesda, Maryland. What else we got? More announcements coming up. I think they are all conference related. Like Wild West Hackin' Fest is being put on by Black Hills Information Security on October 27th and 28th. There will be talks by Dave Kennedy, Deviant, Egypt, Chris Nickerson, Chris Gates, Mike Poor, Sub-T, and more. Check out wildwesthackinfest.com. That's HACKIN fest.com. Look for the fantastic logo with John Strand riding a horse. It's epic. It's epic. And I'm going to tell you about not just Anycon. No, wait. I am going to tell you about Anycon. That joke just never gets old for me. Anycon is the first hacker conference of its kind in Albany, New York on June 16th and 17th at the Albany Convention Center in downtown Albany, New York. They're going to have a Capture the Flag competition, hardware hacking village, and get this, a ping pong tournament. It's awesome. Several tracks will be offered, and it is a family-friendly event. The keynote will be delivered by none other than Dave Kennedy or Dave Kennedy's clone. We're not sure which. Security Weekly will be there recording Hacker Movie Trivia with Doug White and giving away Security Weekly t-shirts and Hacker Movie-themed glassware. Go to anycon.info/tickets and use the code PAUL, that's PAUL, and get $25 off your ticket. Those are the announcements, Michael.
That was a lot of announcements, man.
There was a lot of announcements because I suck at doing this, apparently. It's only been almost 12 years.
So you knew it, but you got a shot.
Yeah. So what's going on in the world of startups?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a busy week in the space of the security notes and the startup notes and the things that we put out there. So we're going to get to those, and we're going to cover some insights there. But I'll tell you, as I've said the last couple times now, I've started to try to select out some of our programming in advance so things balance out. And it's worked out so well with Bonnie and these articles. And I didn't consciously pair these up, but gosh. So the first one, if this one made some of the rounds already because it was so powerful. If you haven't seen it yet, it was on first round review. It was how to become insanely well connected. And this is absolutely worth the read. If you don't read any of the other things we talk about today, go read this one and then reread it again and then print it out and then start trying it out. Basically what it talks about is the way that you can go build these connections. And it was based on Chris Fralick and some of his stuff. And basically, and it's funny because Bonnie said the same thing. The best way to be highly influential, just be a human to everybody that you meet. And so he's got 7 rules for making memorable connections. And I really enjoyed these. Like, a lot of times, Paul, we'll do these lists, and you look at it and you're like, okay, I like that one. Okay, no, I can see why he's got the status he's got, and he's done the things that he's done. So here they are, high level. Convey genuine appreciation. You can't fake it. Like, you've got to be thankful that somebody has connected you to somebody else, or that you've met them, or that you've shared time with them. And it's so fascinating how we get so caught up in ourselves or the transactions or the moment or the bad day or getting caught off in traffic. And it's that what he's really saying here, at least as I'm reading it, is take a moment, take a breath, focus on the other person. Be grateful that you've had that connection. Be grateful you've had that conversation. Enjoy it. take something away from it. And that feeds into the second one, which is listen with intent.
Yeah, and I think listen to your audience too. It's kind of interesting, as I was telling you, I think before the show, Michael, or maybe it was on the show, about my headphone purchases, and it's kind of interesting when you like ask the general population. You just ask random people like how much would you spend on a pair of headphones, right? And most people are like, I don't know, like $10, $20. I'm like, well, how much would you spend on a nice pair of headphones? And they're like, maybe $100, $200 at most, right? There's a smaller subset of the population that spends a lot more than that on on headphones. And I thought of that from like a startup perspective, and I think it relates to a lot of our articles today, Michael. And one of those is being really connected to your customers and understanding that audience. When I posted on Facebook about this, there were people that I'm friends with, not just on Facebook, but in real life too, that I'm like, wow, like I didn't know you were into all that. And there are people from all different backgrounds. So it was just an interesting kind of experiment I've been doing in my head, and made me think about like who you target, how you communicate with them, how they value things. Is I think the big takeaway for me was how people that with different backgrounds just value things completely differently, and there was like no rhyme or reason for that, right? So I don't know. I just thought the whole exercise has been interesting for me to roll around in my head.
You know what I find equally fascinating on that front is that take a look at mattresses, right? We don't make a lot of mattress purchases, and you can go out and you can see all these really cool, like they've got foam or they've got air chambers or they've got whatever else. And I find a lot of people are like, well, why would I spend a lot of money on a mattress? Mm-hmm. Well, because you're probably spending a third of your day on it. Mm-hmm. Like that's a good investment. Same thing with headphones, right? So it's are you doing it for enjoyment or, right? So to your point, the value changes. And when you listen with intent, you get that opportunity, right? What I find a lot of times, people, if they're in one of my communication courses, one of the things I'll explain is we don't listen so much as to what somebody says as we're listening for that interruption so we can say our next witty thing again. And we're using that time to be witty. And we don't let enough pauses. So some advice that I have on being a good listener is listen to what the person says and then reflect on it for a second. Mm-hmm. And if there's silence, let the silence be there. And if it feels uncomfortable, well, then practice it and get over it, because it's not. And that's what lets everybody kind of process. And then ask a thoughtful question or follow up or rephrase back to make sure you got it right. That makes a lot of sense here. Some of those other ideas, again, I didn't have any that I didn't like. I thought these were all really good. Offer unvarnished honesty. We were talking about that before the show. Blue sky brainstorm. Now, this is something that I find I do, and I'm only going to offer one cautionary thing about this. So I'm gonna kind of set it up this way. I'm gonna quote from the piece: "Give before thinking about what you get. Always offer something of value before expecting or asking for something in return. The key to this is not focusing on reciprocity." Yep, I think that's totally true. I am naturally curious about everything, and that is good, and sometimes it's bad because I legitimately have 1,000 questions, kind of like the kid going, why? I'm that kid still. When you blue sky with somebody, what you're basically saying is they're looking for advice and they want something, and you just kind of like spitballing ideas and you're letting it flow and the neurons are popping and everybody's excited. Yeah, it's great. Here's the thing, two things. One, ask them if they want it before you jump into it. And two, not everybody is good at that. So if you happen to be the kind of person who one idea leads to another, and you get more excited and your voice gets more high pitched and you start talking faster, and you have a tendency to overwhelm a lot of people. I'm speaking from experience. Mm-hmm. And as you get a little more older, you can throttle it a little bit, or sometimes I just say to people, I'm about to go on a tear. Don't worry, I'll take notes, or we'll record it and then we'll go back. And I apologize in advance, but it's just one of those things. Like, I think it's good to brainstorm. I think I personally think it's good to do stuff without asking for anything in return. A lot of times when I help people or do things, I don't want anything in return. And let me make one more footnote on that. Sometimes just being part of that process is enough of a return. Using those brain cells, thinking about a problem that way, getting excited, being of value to somebody, that's valuable. That's pretty useful. And then a couple of the pieces, and don't fake it. It was the last one. Like, don't fake it till they make it. So anyway, I thought it was good. There's a lot here. It's a fairly lengthy article, and it talks about ways to keep in touch with people. This is one I'd recommend. I'd go back to it. I'd look at it again and figure it out. Now, this other one I put in, it's really quick. I put it in. I enjoyed for a while watching The Prophet on CNBC. I did not watch The Partner. You and I talk about some of these shows, but basically what Marcos Lemonis says is, hey, if you think that you're going to be a startup and run a company and have a really good work-life balance, no. The reason I put it in was twofold. One, curious your take on it, and then two, I got to tell you, straight up, I routinely point out to my wife that there are days where I'm trying to be a dad and a husband and a brother and a son and a friend and run a startup company and write my column, and I kind of feel like I'm failing at all of them. And so I read this and I went, oh, that's got to be bullshit. And I went, yeah, except for crap, I totally feel like that all the time. So I was kind of curious your take on it.
Well, I think you should feel like you're failing in all of them because that means you're trying, right? Like if you're doing all those things or you're doing a startup and you're like, I got this, you're way too comfortable. Way too comfortable. Probably not going to make it. That's just my take on it, Michael.
Oh, you're probably right.
And I will add that it's something that changes all the time. And because your work life changes, your personal life changes, and I think the quality that you need the most is to be able to adapt to those changes, right? And be able to shift your work habits, shift your personal time, and do good time management. But that's only for dude, it could only be used, like time management for that day, right? Like what's my time management look like for today? And that could be completely different tomorrow. And you have to adapt.
Well, yeah, and let me do another. Now that we're kind of chatting about it, so something else. I think you're right. Is that I find there's an ebb and a flow to it, and unfortunately, I don't find it's nearly predictable. But there's a couple of pieces to it. My older kids, I don't hide what I do from them. So if they want to talk about it, they get answers, and I sit down and I show them the work that goes into it and how these things work, and we have, I think, really good conversations. They're just getting to high school now, so as they age up a little bit, we'll have some of those conversations. So when we talk about you're not going to have a work-life balance. What I would say is you're not going to live a life that other people live. And I don't mind that. Like, I guess what I want to be clear on is it's not a traditional life as we see it in the movies and the way that some of us were brought up to believe life should be. But I also wouldn't trade it for the world because, as you've said, it means that sometimes you have a little extra time. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can book things here or there. You get more control. You have less control, believe it or not, some areas.
That's something my wife and I realized too. Like, I got my own business now. Doesn't mean ultimate flexibility. Well, not. It means flexibility when I do have flexibility.
Right.
Not
when and there's times that you do.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing that I've kind of figured out, and it's fascinating because I've had people tell me this for years, and it finally really started clicking. And it's clicking more and more. In fact, if you guys don't mind, I'll share a nice compliment. I've had two people in the last week tell me that they think I've advanced my business more in the last 30 days than I have in the last 6 or 8 months.
Nice.
And then they always go, take that as a compliment. I go, dude, that's totally a compliment. Thank you. You could have meant it as an insult. I'm taking it as a compliment, you know. But here's why. I'm getting more and more focused, and I'm learning about the things that are prioritized. So it's like I've said before. We've cut out television. I cut out a lot of social media. I took a lot of the apps and games off of my phone. We took electronics away. I'm the first person to tell you, if you value your time, don't cut your own yard. So we decided to start cutting our own yard. Now, fairness, I've got the kids doing it, but we go outside as a family now once a week and do yard work and stuff. And it's not because we're trying to do yard work. It's actually more about some of that connection and some of that. And I'm finding that those things pay off. So what I would say to this is the trait that you have to have isn't about realizing you can't have a work-life balance. It's that balance is an artificial construct in the first place, and you're going to have to lead a life that's different than everybody else's. And a lot of people will question that to your face, and they'll question your sanity. And all I can tell you is if you question mine, I will affirm for you, it's gone. I don't have it.
I have to say,
that's okay.
On this topic, Michael, one of the things that I've learned, because people ask me this question all the time, like how do you do it? How do you balance the work-life balance thing? And you have to be comfortable. What I found in the past years, you have to be comfortable with change. And I think that's one of the things I missed for a long time. And now I'm totally comfortable that if I'm up at 5 a.m, I might be working, might be taking care of a baby, or might be getting some stuff done around the house. And just whatever the day brings for that morning is what, is what's going to happen. I know I've got those 3 things to choose, and there are external factors that may steer me in one direction or the other. And you got to go with it. And so when you are working, you got to think about, well, how is it going to play out that I can go do some stuff around the house? How is it going to play out where I can take some time off here or there to spend time with the kid? You know what I mean? It's a constant evolving thing, and that's what I've learned in the past year, certainly. And it took me myself and my family and even the people that work here, right, to get used to that. That's just the way it's going to happen. So, and I think it's working pretty well.
Yeah, me too. Like that's the thing. Like I looked at it, but what I did realize is if you think that being a startup or having your own company means I don't roll in till 10, I'm done by 4, I take Fridays off. Yeah, no. I mean, you might be able to, if you run a pure lifestyle business and your skill set's in enough demand, I would say, yeah, you probably can do that, and that'd be great. But the reality of it is, it's a different life. It's a different lifestyle, and frankly, it's not for everybody. No. Quick note here, just why companies are not startups. And it just said in the last few years, we've recognized that a startup is not a smaller version of a large company. We're now realizing that large companies, or that companies are not larger versions of startups. And they're talking about this idea of companies need to be more innovative. So what's stopping them from doing that? So here's what it comes down to. And it actually dovetails to an article I wrote this week. Will Lin from Trident Capital was one of our guests on the program, really starting to bring us into the world of the VC. And Will and I wrote an article, or he contributed to an article I wrote this week on startups, and he posited this idea around venture capitalists in the security space. They're the modern managers of research and development. That if you look at publicly traded security companies, and this is kind of what this article is talking about, if you're a company. Now, it doesn't mean that startups aren't legitimate. In fact, I'm trying to work. I've alluded to this a couple times now. You're an idea and or a seed stage company, and then if you're going the route of funding, you get your A or your B series, and now that's when you're going to work on your product market fit. We got a article on that too, and then you get up into your growth stage. Now, what's happening then is that as you go through this, I think I have an idea that people will pay for. I have an idea people will pay for it. We're getting traction. We're getting customer testimonials. It's starting to work. And then you work on what you call your unit economics. So I know what it costs to deliver it. I can standardize that. I can get it to work. Right? And then when you're in your growth stage, you're basically getting ready for your exit, whether that's mergers and acquisition, or it's an IPO, or it's some sort of other exit, like a PE buys you to whatever. Once you've exited, you're a company. And when you're a company, your job is now to return value to the shareholders. And the way that you return value to the shareholders is you do what you do, and you do it very well. And you build the policies around that. You build the routines around that. Research and development is risky. And you want to de-risk yourself because your job is to return value. And so as a result, you start to innovate less. And so that's the point, right? This is why startups aren't big companies. And big companies, they're not startups. It's actually why I see that merger coming together. And so what I threw out in the piece this week was, if you're a large company and you want innovation, you need to pay attention to startups. You need to watch our program. In fact, Paul, I linked to our program in the article. But that's kind of the point is the innovation is going to happen in the startups. And then the way that the big companies can tap into that innovation is they acquire them. That's why they'll pay a multiple. In fact, we've got an article about that. That's why you'll pay the multiple, because you didn't take on that risk of that research and development. The marketplace took on that risk. And so what we're proposing is the modern day VC in the security space is going to start to shepherd that. It's a concept. I'd love to know what people think about it. And give me some ideas or some suggestions or data to back it up or to destroy it, and we'll build on it. But that's essentially what this article was talking about as well. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. If you've got your stuff all figured out and you're just down, you've exited, now it's all about returning value using something that's repeatable, scalable, and that you execute exceptionally well on. Then you're not a startup, and there's no shame in that. That's okay. So that's thoughts.
I really don't have any on that article.
Okay. I didn't want to just keep rolling.
Yeah.
And not
no, it's fine. It's fine. I think it's interesting. I don't know.
Not always your thing. I
Next
get it.
story.
All right. All right. Well, so I thought this was interesting. It was the 24-month journey to product market fit. What it basically says is there's four. And so this is why I liked it. There's 4 stages. You got to prove that there's a problem. You got to prove that your solution solves the problem. You got to prove that somebody will pay for you to solve the problem. And then you got to prove that you can scale. And when you get through those, that's the product market fit. So you've got a product, it's got to fit the market. Market's got to recognize that there's a problem, right? And then it kind of works its way through. And they said, oh, by the way, we find on average, it's going to take you like 24 months. In fact, what I really liked, because this is what caught me right in the beginning. So I'm going to just read the whole, this is the intro. After introducing our startup progress barometer, we got quite a few responses about the time it takes to go through the different phases. Someone even called it crazy talk that it takes 3 to 6 months to define the problem and solution. Yeah. And what I'm finding is, yeah, like if I just look at Straight Talk and the evolution and the things I'm learning, yeah, like I'm somewhere in the middle here. Like I now understand that there's a problem and that I have the solution to it, and that thankfully I have clients, and so people are paying. But I'm still like I'm in that third part. Like I'm iterating around that product market fit. So anyway, I went, oh, this is really kind of interesting. So here's the good thing. Lots of detail in here, like lots of good stuff in here. Lots of stuff.
Do they talk about above and beyond like proving you'll pay and proving you'll scale? At what point you can be profitable? And I don't mean that from show me when you're going to be profitable, but at some point I think in this process, Michael, I think it's a really important maybe sub-step of number 3, proving that they'll pay.
Yes, it is.
To learn about how you can control your costs or reduce your cost and increase how much people are going to pay, or like at some point you have to show some margins in there. And how much that margin is, right, largely, it actually solely depends on the industry that you're in and what you're making and what people are paying for it and all that stuff. But you have to look at profitability in there.
No, and that's in there. That's in that prove people will pay. So what it basically says is, right, and that's where we'll talk a lot about, like the lingo is unit economics. What are you producing? What are they going to pay? What's your actual cost of delivery? Right. How does that break down? How much is left over at the end of it? And that's how you start figuring out if you've done a good job or not.
But I think proving that people will pay and proving that it can be profitable are 2 different things, right? Like getting to the stage proving people pay, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. You might have to tweak it, both your costs and how much you charge and maybe the services you offer, right, to get there, and then talk about scale. So I think if that piece is in there, I really agree.
It is very much in there, and basically said, too, that if you can't make money doing it, then people aren't actually paying what it's worth. Right. Or it's not a problem worth solving. So,
or you're not producing enough value. Like maybe you need to either pivot or offer something additional, or get to a point where you're like, oh well, if we had that, then people would pay X amount more, and then it's profitable.
Yep. Now here's the thing. In summary, at the end of this one, it says basically figure you're going to prove that a problem exists. That should take about 3 months. And you can do that on money from friends, family, and fools. Prove out your solution should take, on average, again, they're saying 6 months, pre-seed and angels. Prove that somebody will pay. That's going to be 15 months. That's your seed, your extended seed investments. Remember, last week we talked about that new trend for extended seed, second round of seeds, reopen the rounds and stuff like that. And then when you prove that you scale, that's an ongoing thing, but that's your series, your A, your B, your C. Now, what I would argue is, based on my discussions, at least in the security space with the investors there, is the timeline looks about right. But I would say that, once you've started to prove your solution, you'll probably be past your seed round, and proving that people will pay, that's your AB round. That's when your unit economics is coming together. That's when you can go back to somebody and say, okay, now we know how this works. And yes, we have enough money that, based on our current trajectory, we will make money. This works. And so that's just kind of the way it works. All right, last one, because it makes both of us happy. Startups worship the young, but research shows people are most innovative when they're older. I put up other ones before that said, the average age of somebody in a startup was, I think, 48, and average age of stuff. Because obviously, if you're young, if you're in your 20s and you're the hot shot, now you're the new billionaire, we'll profile that. It's atypical. And so everybody says, kids can do that because they're startups. And to be fair, when you don't have kids and a spouse and all these other obligations, you may be able to take more risks. That said, what we're kind of finding is people actually start to get innovative when they get older. And let's see. The study found that the overall median age of innovators was 47 years old. Only 5.8% of the sample was 30 years or younger, and innovation peaked between the ages of 46 and 50, but the rate of innovation continues to be very high until the age of 55, and then did decline sharply after 65, the median expected retirement age in the U.S. And particularly in the life sciences, material sciences, and information technology fields, individuals who filed patents tended to be in the latter half of their careers. So here's the point. If you're watching this program and you're young, kick ass, go get it. And if you're watching this program, you're more likely to be in that demographic that says, cool, let's go get after it. Or if you're sitting there saying, well, I'm not 47 yet, I'm in my 30s. Good. Here's the point. None of it matters. Any of this conventional wisdom about how old you need to be or can't be or what.
Yeah.
If you got an idea and you believe in it, you can follow it. And if you're following our program, you're going to start getting the tips to make good decisions, to narrow your focus, to communicate more effectively, to make those decisions, to make those connections, that you're going to do great. And so that's really why I kind of put that in there. I just wanted people to know that they were okay.
Yeah, I agree. Don't accept any restrictions like that based on age or gender or anything like that. Yeah. Really, right? Those
you didn't miss
irrelevant.
In fact, what I'll tell you is kind of interesting too is as a writer. And I've got like 4 or 5 more books in my head. I can't wait to get out. But I started looking at other people that write like so I'll switch genres. I'll go to fiction. I look at people that are writing blockbuster fiction. Most of them, Paul, started in their 40s and 50s. Some of them started in their 60s. So I'm looking at it for me going, oh, all right, cool. So I go look at people that have run other successful companies similar to the stuff I'm trying to do. Most of them, they got started in their 40s and 50s. And I'm going, okay, calm down, Michael. Like you're good. Just stay on the track. Just keep executing. And so, wherever you are in the journey, other people have done it. Some older, some younger, some faster, some slower. Are you happy? You getting results? I think that's all that really matters. So, all right. Notes of interest. So Harvard Business. It's funny. It captured my attention. I sat down and read the whole thing. I'll give you the high level take of it. AWS has changed the way the VCs fund startups. There you go. That's the headline. But actually, it really has changed it. Now, I would say, is it just AWS? I don't know. And this was what they call a summary. So they didn't get deep into all the elements of the research. They're basically saying, here's what we're starting to see. But here's what I distilled it down to. It's more of that spray and pray. So because, and I've heard this now from a couple different people. It used to be that if you had an idea, you had to go get money to do the idea. Mm-hmm. And now spinning something up is cheap. In fact, some cases, it doesn't even cost anything. And so what the VC have done, what they noticed was there was an inflection. And starting in 2006, they would give out more money. It'd be less money. They'd give out more money to people. And frankly, more people failed. But those that succeeded tended to do better. So there were 2 things that they learned from it. One, if you succeeded, you tended to get a higher valuation second round. The other thing, and it's not surprising, but it's interesting, is in that first round, you'd get money, but you really wouldn't get the guidance and the support and the connections that you needed. It was much more of a, that sounds novel. All right, I'll write you a check. Good luck. Let me know how it goes. And then you come back a year later, and it's like, oh, you guys worked. I never would have thought that would have worked. Well, it worked. Awesome. Okay, well, now that you've proven that it worked, let's get involved. Let's build you into a company. Let's figure it out. So that's all. I thought it was interesting. There's more detail there. That's it. Signified raised $56 million Series C. It's so again, the reason I put this in was because it was SaaS, and it's all about detecting fraud and preventing credit card chargebacks. Now, I'm pretty much on record that I think largely our fraud problems are at historical lows, and I think that because largely our fraud problems are at historical lows. That said, what I think is if you're helping an e-commerce business detect fraud and prevent the credit card chargebacks, that's the people getting bit in the ass. Those are the people that bear the harm on this. So the fact that they raised the Series C and a fairly significant Series C. So think about what we just talked about. They have their unit economics down. They've got their product to market fit. Why would they take a $56 million Series C round? They didn't have an exit yet, but they need to grow. They're in growth stage. That money is going to fuel growth. It's either going to fuel platform development, but more likely, this is going to be marketing and sales. This is going to be getting out and penetrating into the small business who says, why do I need that? I thought I'm already using the XYZ payment network, and they've got to go convince people what they need.
Right. And I think the technology that's changed over time are the things that we say in security like don't work. Like, we poo-poo machine learning and data analytics, big data, artificial intelligence, threat intelligence feeds, but like that stuff works when it comes to detecting fraud and preventing credit card chargebacks. Like that stuff is very applicable to that. And I see a lot of financial organizations doing very well with their strategies and products to help detect fraud.
Yeah, and I think we're going to continue to see that, and I think that's kind of exciting. Ativo Networks, $15 million Series B. It's a pretty sizable Series B. Their deception technology. I don't have a lot of experience with them, Paul. Have you?
Yeah, I won't make anyone from Ativo mad, but they're more on the honeypot side of the deception technology.
Okay.
They're trying to be a deception technology that stands on its own rather than one that integrates more closely with some of the other security technologies, which is a trend that I'm seeing. I don't know if they're pivoting or what they're doing lately. They must be doing something good. They got a $50 million Series B, so something to watch.
Right. So based on the way we look at it, that means that they're onto something, and that money's either going to go towards that pivot, it's going to go towards development, it's going to go. So they may be early stage growth, but chances are with a $15 million Series B, what you're trying to do is get it all dialed in and really get that settled up so that you can move into that growth phase. Signal Sciences, friend of the show, sponsor of the Security Weekly stuff, and all around people that we've enjoyed. $15 million Series B. So that's good. It's good for them as well.
Absolutely.
They're in a spot. They're in an area I want to talk to you more about. We can do it on air or off air at some point. Not today, but I want to try to understand this space better and try to understand the differences between RAF and WASP.
So there's a whole alphabet
else.
soup of web application protections, and at this juncture now, people are really genuinely confused about what all the products do and how they help them. They don't even know what problems all of this alphabet soup is solving. Signal Sciences, granted they're a sponsor of the show, one reason I like their approach is they cut out a lot of that alphabet soup solution mess, and they're just like, no, we believe this is the way to do it. And I think they got something really good. And so Signal Sciences is on my recommendation list for people that I consult with, and the feedback that I get is 100% positive. So,
yeah, that's great. Well, and it's funny, right? Because I've never really considered myself big into the app development space, but I've been asked about this space 3 times in the last week alone. So I was like, I know who to ask. I'm going to talk to Paul on Friday. we're going to ask about it. But congratulations to Signal Sciences. They've done a great job. And then CyberArk acquired Conjur. $42 million. Now, I tried to get some details on this, and I know some of the people involved, but I don't know them well enough that I could act on this fast, and this came across last night. So Conjur does DevOps security, but around identity stuff, so multi-factor authentication and different things. And CyberArk...
Multi-factor machine authentication, which is interesting in the DevOps context. I'd have to think about and read more about how that plays together. On the surface, that makes sense that would be a standout solution and something CyberArk would acquire.
Yeah, and so CyberArk snapped them up. $42 million. So, I'm kind of glad people were public with it because it lets us understand the exits better. It was a little tough because the funding in both the Crunchbase and Owler was there's somewhere between $2 and $4 million worth of funding, and it was like an equity round. So it was a little uncertain. I don't know if the information was accurate or not, but this could then start to signify too, right? So CyberArk, big public company, a little tougher to do R&D with that type of stuff. So they would pick up somebody like a Conjur. It feels like at a decent multiple. Now, again, I don't have insider knowledge, and I don't have clear picture on the data, but that's pretty tight. So I like the way that works. So anyway, lots of stuff happening and good stuff. Good companies doing good things. Especially when you're getting into your Series B and Series C rounds. The market's responding well. You're doing a good job, and so we'll keep an eye on those companies. From a journey stuff, Paul, I got feedback from some of our listeners that you were right. So we now call it a value proposition breakdown. But I got to tell you what, this week, man, you talk about things clicking. I got a whole bunch of stuff outlined and figured out. I'm in a really good place. So the resource is just about done. Should be out next week. And so if you're watching or listening and you want to take a read through it or try it, actually take a read through it if you want. I'd rather people try it. And what I'm trying to design, Paul, is something that, and you and I started this back in InfoSec World. what 3 questions can you ask a vendor? What 3 questions, right? Same 3 questions, right? So the idea is just start with 3 questions. You can ask it yourself. You can ask it of somebody coming to you for help. You can ask it of a project that you're trying to get off the ground. You can ask it of a vendor. There's a number of ways to do it, and I've already had some use cases come up that are excited. So I'm on. We talk about those balancing points. It's been a good week, hectic, energetic. I'm glad it's Friday, but it's been a great week. And next week starts my 5-week series on cyber insurance. So
Nice.
cybersecurity insurance. So it should be good.
That's awesome.
How about you, man?
So we made some huge progress on the interface. It looks awesome. I think that we are going to take some more time and build some more usability into it. John and I can look at the interface and pretty much instantly know where those things are. So it was really exciting. What we learned is we don't to do more structured product development and not overwhelm them. Don't get the developers on the phone and then just go through every nitpicky thing all at once and leave them confused. What John and I did is actually take notes separately that only him and I could see. Then John and I will talk through them, prioritize them, and then present them to the dev team. And that's our approach for development today. And I think it's going to work better. It's also, I think a good business approach too is not just to overwhelm people with, here are all the things we need to do, is to have some structure and order to it. And that's helpful. That's what I learned this week.
Just to add on that, when you look at mindset, I can give you the list of 12 things you did wrong, or I can say, Paul, I really like it. Here's the next thing I want you to focus on.
Yes.
That's why we talk about in my practice, best next step. I'm not giving you everything you can do.
Right.
Let's just talk about from where you are, where you need to get to. Here's your best next step. Let's do that. Okay, good. Let's do the next one. So I think that's awesome. I always enjoy these chats with you, my friend. This has been another good episode. So thanks for making me a little smarter.
A lot of fun. Thank you very much, Michael. Enjoyed all of your insights as well as Bonnie's as well. It was a great show. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching Startup Security Week. We'll see everyone next week.